Hello and welcome to my greenhouse. It's early spring. It's too wet out there for gardening today, so I'm hiding away in the greenhouse, and I just want to run through a few tips on seed sowing. I'm not going to go through all the what am I sowing in February business, because there's so many much better, more entertaining people out there that'll do that. So I'm not a very good entertainer, so I'll just run through anything I think might be useful for you. The first one is bubble wrap. This actually adds about 0.5 degrees C rise in temperature. Not much, is it? And if you add that the glass provides perhaps 1 degree, you get about a plus 1.5 without heat, which actually is enough to avoid frost in many places and keep it above the growing or the targeted growing temperature of 4 degrees minimum time, because I tend to believe in recycling an awful lot. What you'll see here and during my musings won't be pretty, but it's recycled. Most of it is recycled. You know, some of it's obviously brand new, like the greenhouse was 20 years ago, something like that. And it stood the time very well. The door is hanging off. And I'll fix it one day, but at the moment I've got it wedged closed with a bit of wood. Does the job, doesn't it? Yeah. Greenhouse. This is a rough built permanent wooden bench that I work off. Everything gets started off on this little section. Hardly cost me a bean, because it's all recycled wood. As you may have got to understand, I tend to like recycling a lot, and if I can reuse something and repurpose it, then that's all good as far as I'm concerned. I have got one heat mat under here which is buried under plants. These celery are looking particularly good, variety Hadrian. Let's hope they hold great promise. On the topic of recycling, now I have a permanent bed in here on the south side of the greenhouse, and what I'd like to do is put an old coffee table over top of it to provide extra space for seedlings. It needs a new top at the moment because the last one's rotted away. I've got to source that. But basically it stops the slugs getting to the young seedlings and provides temporary growing space, of which will be very quickly crowded out. I have got a nice little section left here. Yeah, so that's what that's all about. Now, I've just been preaching to you about reusing stuff, not buying in new. So I'm going to start off with a product that I think is absolutely amazing. Very expensive. These trays cost probably £5 each, but they're so rigid and so well made, you can drive a car over them and they won't crush. They won't be degraded in light, and they are fully recycled plastic. So these have got very nice holes in the bottom. They're so rigid they're not going to be busted, and they will last for years. And that's what I'm mainly interested in, is they've been designed by gardeners for gardeners, and they are brilliant. I will put a link in the comments below. I have no financial interest in these guys whatsoever, but when you see a product that is so well designed, I think it's worth mentioning. Oh, just I want to say as well, the 40 cell, not A4 size, but I forgot the measurements now, but you know, it's the standard seed tray size. The 40 cell, I think, is the most practical of all the different sizes they do. I was a bit confused as to which I should buy, and I bought the 28 cell, and it's just a bit too big. They're quite shallow, but I think that's good enough as well. And yeah, they work really well. So yeah, the first one's enticing you to spend a bit of money, but I think long term, this is the way to go. And plastic is only evil if it's a throwaway. I bought some of this seed last year, so this is 2022 seed, Redanda onions, very low germination rate. So I decided to cut my losses and buy a second lot and re-sow About 3 weeks difference between the two, if I could count. 2 weeks difference between the two. And you can see the germination rate is far better. Forget about the size difference, that's reflective of the time. I just want to make a couple of points whilst I'm doing these celery. Firstly, I don't sift the compost that goes into these trays because they're plugs. These are next pop out in one big plug. So they're fine to have all the lumps and bumps in the natural compost. It's basically imitating Mother Nature in the soil with all lumps that comes naturally. In my tray that I'm actually pricking out here, I just wanted to show you how easy it is to let these just fall apart. Look at that, look, just absolutely falling apart. That's because it's sifted and there's no lumps. That is a perfect seedling ready for transplanting. I'll just do that again. These just fall apart. There's no damage to the root system there whatsoever. There's 2 plants, but you get the idea. These sifting the soil before you sow is so valuable, it's unbelievable. Thanks to Steve at Green Side Up, because he was the one that basically taught me this. He didn't individually teach me this, but through the wonders of YouTube. Absolutely fabulous. This is my tiny grow room. It has a Spider Farmer light on top there that's on 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. It's got a small heat mat that's on roughly the same as well. This container is all surrounded on the roof and 2 sides by clear plastic and by silver foil, reflecting that other light on the north and west side so that it maximizes reflection of the normal background sun as much as I possibly can. And I can get away with not too much in the use of wasted energy. I reckon it's about £2.80 to run per week by just keeping on 5 hours a day. It's okay, but it mounts up, and there is a value to vegetables, and sometimes we can all get a bit carried away with a hobby. Last year I probably did. I probably spent far too much. The celery there, just coming on quite nicely. Just a quick look under. No, nothing up there. There's the second batch of tomatoes there. The first batch of tomatoes are looking pretty good. Oh, and there we are. The timer's just clicked off. Oh, I forgot to say this. This temporary structure is in my conservatory. That has enabled a huge boost in energy saving because I really haven't had to spend much energy. It's sited on top of a coffee table, an old stainless steel coffee table, so it keeps it all nice and neat and transportable and portable. Something I do want to quickly just pass over, and that is the early started potatoes are really going away well. This is desperately ready to be potted up, which I will do when the camera goes off. Look at that root structure, absolutely lovely. This is using a mixture of Miracle Grow peat-free compost and a mixture of my own blends that have been used, all the spare stuff basically, and it's growing really well. Look at that root structure. Now, anybody remember Jeff Hamilton back in the 90s? Fantastic bloke, way ahead of his time. You know, he was banging on about core long before it ever got popular. He was always on about root structure in core. It's not necessarily a great indicator of a perfect compost mix. It's one of the few things he did get wrong, I'm afraid. Not about core, but the root structure. It's not indicative of a really good plant. It's more of an indicative of the plant is struggling for nutrients and it needs feeding. But dear old Jeff, you know, I'm arguing with a bloke that's been dead for quite a few years and had more knowledge in his big toe than I have in my entire experience so far. Sorely missed, fantastic gardener. Gardener's world, never a patch without that great man. Sorry, personal indulgence. And something that has come on really nicely is my potatoes in buckets. They do need a little bit of a water, but they're coming on quite nicely. They've got pretty good light levels where they are at the moment. They'll be forced under the benches by space very shortly, I would guess. But yeah, they're coming on okay. I'm quite pleased with the progress. And these are basically helping nullify some of the costs that you're heating, or not heating in this particular case, the greenhouse.